There's personal protective equipment for sailing, so you need your protective clothing on, so this could be due to the temperature of the weather. Helmets, so most important part of the human body is the head, so this provides protection. Safety shoes for grip, hand gloves to make sure that you don't get rope burns or cuts in your hands. Sometimes people wear goggles, and sometimes you have a safety harness depending on what the weather's like. So, emergency procedure for OAA. So if someone were to fall off or get hit with a boom or really hurt themselves, first aid would be applied, so once again Dr. ABC. If it was in the middle of the sea, then emergency signals would be fired, and you need to maintain as much heat as possible. But also, if you're in the water in the middle of the sea and there's no boats around, then you need to look for land and also keep your hand up in the air to wait for signal to see if you can get anyone's attention. So environmental considerations are that you could disturb the marine wildlife and also noise pollution at competitions. So cautions put in place, having designated areas for sailing in the sea. So this may be where there is minimal wildlife, so it can be disturbed, or away from breeding grounds, which will disturb their natural habitat. But also holding competitions in and around lakes that have little wildlife in them. So these could be man-made lakes which have been designed especially for sailing competitions, so it reduces the chance of disturbing the wildlife. So these are some of the risks not accounted for in the first risk assessment. So faulty equipment can cause cuts, bruises, to broken bones. The participant will be at risk, so only equipment that's suitable and that's been checked for safety is used. So this risk rating is 6. Also, you just advise them, and there'll be pictures of suitable equipment. And you wouldn't use broken equipment to go out sailing with. Another hazard is pulling a muscle from overstretching to grab the boom. So people at risk will be the participant. And there's an element of warm up before you do any sort of activity like this. The risk rating would be 2, and you'd advise them to warm up. The next OAA activity is mountain biking. So a hazard is falling off the bike onto the half floor and causing injury. So people at risk will be the participant. The controls in place will be that a helmet's fitted correctly and is worn, and sometimes gloves are worn. The participant ability is assessed in a controlled environment before they go out. Risk rating would be 6, because if it were to happen, it could be quite dangerous. Other comments, so when there's snow, ice or frozen ground, the decision for the activity to run is taken in the morning in a staff meeting. Next hazard is equipment failure causing injury to the participant. So people at risk will be the participant. The controls in place, all bikes have pre-issue checks completed by the instructor, and faulty bikes cleared, labelled and removed from the service. So this to ensure that no one getting on the bike will be using faulty equipment. So a risk rating would be 6 for this, because if it were to happen it would be quite dangerous. Participants are coached correctly and how to use gears and how to use their brakes, and they know where their brakes are. Another hazard is collision with other road or trail users, so participants and other participants would be at risk. There's a route plan to reduce the use of public roads, and group is managed effectively by the instructor. The risk rating for this is 4. Operation signs and advice followed, and group briefed on considerate riding. Next hazard, bike out of control, causing the individual to fall off, so we risk the participant. Controls in place, the use of brakes coached and practiced by participants before they go out, and participant ability is assessed in a controlled environment. So this is a risk rating of 4. And speed controlled by the instructor, appropriate to the participant's ability. Another hazard is poor light conditions, so if it's dark. Light and high visibility vests available for participants when expected to travel in poor light conditions or in the dark. And the risk rating for this is 4. Also, emergency lights can be taken by the riders. Personal protective equipment for mountain biking is protective clothing, helmet, safety shoes, and then if travelling along a road, then brightly coloured clothing to make sure that cars can see them. So emergency for the OAA activity. So if someone were to fall off their bike and really hurt themselves, then first aid will be applied, so once again Dr. ABC. If you're in the middle of nowhere and no help has come, then emergency signals, this could be by flashing your phone torch on and off every minute until someone comes. You also need to maintain as much heat as possible, so wrapping up the participant in extra clothing, or if you did have a blanket or a thermal insulator, then wrapping them in that. And also keeping an individual calm, because if they've really hurt themselves, they're more likely to get very stressed about it. But if you keep them calm, then it's better for them. Environmental considerations. You may disturb wildlife by cycling. Noise pollution at wildlife breeding grounds, and path erosion. If you're constantly going along the same path, then you'll erode the path when you're going along it and reduce vegetation. So cautions put in place is having designated areas for cycling. So this may be where there's limited wildlife or away from breeding grounds. Also conserving areas where it's become very eroded. So if a certain path is used every day continuously for a year, then there'll be a lot of erosion. But if you rest it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months within that year, then vegetation will be able to grow back and the path will be able to rejuvenate. So risks not accounted for. Hazard, colliding with a tree or getting hit by a branch causing harm to the participant. People at risk will be the participants. And controls put in place is to use and stay on the path that is signed. Risk rate would be 6. If it were to happen, it could cause a lot of injury to the individual. Also, instructors would advise them where to go, where not to go, and advise them to look out all the time as to where they're going. And there'll be maps of which paths to go on. Another hazard is pulling a muscle from not warming up. So people at risk would be the participant. The controls in place would be an element of warm up before. This isn't a very high risk rating, it's only 2, and individuals are advised to warm up.